I'm Jenni Smith. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Quiltfolk virtual show and tell. Today we are travelling to Oregon, California and Brazil, and we're kicking off with something completely different because the founder of Quiltfolk magazine, McCormick, is talking for the first time about how working in this incredible community has got him to thinking about maybe he should make a quilt of his own.
This is a view from my office. There's a sliding door that goes from my office to the backyard, and it's pretty peaceful. And I've become pretty fascinated with birds and attracting birds in the backyard. So we've got a lot of bird feeders, and my 2-year-old likes to help me feed them. And so this is a nice, peaceful place to relax. I've been in the quilting industry for about 10 years. And I've written children's books about it. I've manufactured fabric for quilters. I've designed lighting products. I've obviously published the magazine now for almost 20 issues. So the question I get the most often is, okay, well, do you quilt? And the answer has always been, no, I don't quilt. And also I've never actually even made a quilt. And so I just figured it was high time that I dug in. I'd consider myself a generalist, which means I'm decent at a lot of different things, but I've never had something that I was, extraordinarily talented at. And especially from like a creative standpoint. If my 2-year-old asked me to draw a horse, I can kind of make something that looks like a horse. If I take a picture, it may look better than half of the people, but it's certainly not something I would ever publish. And it's kind of haunted me a little bit because I feel like on the inside, I want this outlet to be able to really express and to do these things. And I've just never found it, at least to date, there's never been kind of what I would consider a traditionally creative field that I've kind of found as a home. I think the interesting thing about quilting specifically is that you do kind of have constraints that feel kind of good, right? Like it's creativity within a box to some degree. You've got a form factor, and it's not always square, it's not always rectangular, but there's some piece of area you have, and then you kind of get to be interesting within that. And just given the nature of cutting up fabric and putting them together, I was like, well, maybe this is something that, like, maybe the fabric can do the heavy lifting on the really artistic side. And if I can cut a straight line and I can kind of vision it and put it together, like maybe like it would be hard to really mess that up in a super significant way. So I think there's a little bit of hope in it for me that maybe it's that vehicle to finally do something I would really be happy with creatively. I think art fundamentally is communicating something that is oftentimes goes beyond what our spoken language is able to really capture. I mean, if you think about language, it's actually pretty limiting, verbal language. And so art is a really cool way to kind of break down those walls and communicate those nuanced things that you can't really articulate. But the difference between what I would say, like some of those really timeless, objectively interesting or beautiful quilts or pieces of art, is the maker was really tapping into that sort of deep source of inspiration somewhere within them. Like they were the conduit between the emotion or the experience or the feeling and that end result that ultimately gets communicated.
Are you only going to make one quilt then?
I would really love to find that quilting is one of those outlets that I feel like I'm able to take what's in my brain and make it a reality. I think that's sort of, that's what's frustrating about other mediums, is I just haven't been able to do that. And so I don't find a lot of joy, like say painting or something, because sometimes it can be so frustrating that I just can't get to where I'm trying to go. Now, entrepreneurship has been fun because when you're making products and you're designing things and you're working with teams, you actually get skill sets from a lot of different people. So like take the magazine. I don't have to be an amazing graphic designer. We have a really amazing graphic designer. I don't have to be great at taking pictures. We have world-class photographers. So I get to be a part of that process, but I don't have to do every single thing. And so a team approach has always been good. But like an individual solitary creative outlet, I'm not found. But if quilting turns out to be something that I can do and I feel good about, I could foresee making a lot of them.
We're heading to Sao Paulo in Brazil now to talk to Carolina with her Kandinsky-inspired quilt.
My two grandmothers were sewers, crocheters, knitters, my mom too. So it was something that I always have been very close, right? So I start knitting and crocheting, and I decide to buy a sewing machine because I want to start sewing. And looking in Pinterest, I discovered quilting. I was always looking for a medium where I can express that creativity, that creative side that I have. And finally, I found it in fabrics. In Brazil, you can find a lot of quilt shops, patchwork ateliers, but it's more like a traditional quilting, right? In the use of patterns, of colors, and that kind of things. I have so many favorite artists, like, I don't know, Paul Klee, Eduardo Chillida, a Spanish artist, and many, many others. But one of the favorites is Kandinsky. And then this year I decided to make this quilt that is inspired in a color study that he did in his painting Squares with Concentric Circles, where he played making all kind of combination and playing with contrast and what's happening if I put a dark color with a light one, or if I put two complementary colors, one circle inside another one. And I love about how there are some combinations that I love, and there are others that I don't like it. But as a complete composition, I think it works very well. It's always a challenge to create a shape, a design, and to find the colors, because when you paint, you can mix the paint and get the color that you want, right? But with fabrics, it's like working with papers, I don't know, and you need to find that color and you need to create that shape that sometimes it's very difficult.
So technically, your job was harder than Kandinsky's.
Yes. I decided to quilt a grid with my walking foot, and now I'm quilting circles inside all those tiny squares.
Do you dream about quilts?
I always thinking and imagining new ideas for my quilts, always. It's a moment of peace, of being just with yourself. It's like, it's one of the best moments, right? This is the place where I have to be, right?
I'm talking to Hillary in Auburn, California now about her 2020 vision quilt.
So we live in the foothills. It's pretty remote. It's not city life by any means. As an ER doctor, I'm not really a crier. I'm not somebody who's allowed to mourn. I'm the one who puts the pieces together. I'm the one who makes sure everybody's okay. You have to kind of hold it together. You're not allowed to be emotional. So this was these are my tears, you know. This quilt is my tears for the year. Yeah. I process so much of what I do in my day job with quilting. It's actually made out of jeans, white jeans material, and black quilting cotton. The eye is one that I actually just drew out on a piece of paper, and and then I paper pieced it, and I combined paper piecing with inset circles, appliqued tiers on top of it, and then I felt like I wanted to make the quilting as hard as the year was, as strange as that sounds. And so it needed to be a challenging quilting. It couldn't be done in a day. And so I decided to hand quilt it and included all of these monotonous 2020s, a field of 2020, to reflect the fact that every day in 2020 was kind of a Groundhog Day. The repetition of each day. I wanted it to reflect that, but also included phrases and words that were iconic for the year. So included N95 and COVID and George Floyd and things that we will remember. Quilts have made a statement forever, right? But of course, most people equate them with comfort objects. I needed to mark this year. It was a hard year, and the hardness kind of shows off in the design as well. I named it the 2020 Vision Quilt because 2020 vision is perfect. That's what the goal is, right? And that's something that I look for as a physician when I'm taking care of people with eye issues. But gosh, 2020 was so imperfect. And I wanted us to be able to, capture all of that in our vision and look back at that with clear eyes. Everything that I do in my day job is high stakes. I can't make a mistake. There's no room for error, but this is just fabric. If you make a design or you don't do it right, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. So I think that makes you maybe a little bit more brave about it and cut the good fabric and sew things together, try out a new idea. This is the place where we can play, where we can experiment, and the stakes are not high.
Entropy always wins. What does that mean?
For me, it means chaos will always follow. That we, as much as we like to control the world, people will die, things will fall apart. But there's so much beauty in the making, and that we should continue to make the beauty, even though it's temporary. So continue to make things and realize and live your life knowing that it won't last forever, but the temporariness of it makes it even more beautiful. So, yeah.
Wonderful people and incredible quilts. Mike thinking this could be the medium where he might finally find his creative voice. Carolina, consumed by quilting, even dreams about it. And Hilary, who finds that escape and that relaxation in quilting, where the handwork is a break from the headwork. The one thing I've learned from making these films is that regardless of where quilters are in the world, we all find this huge amount of satisfaction from quilting, and it's so much more than just a pastime for us. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what quilting means to you, so do comment and do get in touch if you'd like to be part of this show and tell. You can email me at jenni@quiltfolk.com, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you for watching.